Hello folks, this is Prashant. In this series we will understand what is Hibernate and their introduction, history, and what's the advantage and disadvantage. Let's start. So before we proceed we should know about like pre-requirement is basic core Java like oops concept and method overloading and method overriding and all this. And the second thing is MySQL. Like we should know about how we can create the database and CURD operation, create, update, delete, and joins, and primary key and foreign keys. And the last one is JDBC connections and driver. Like type 4 driver, we should know what's that. So let's start with the history. So it was started in 2001 by Calvin King as an alternative of EJB entity bean. And entity bean represent that the persistent data stored in the database. And there is the EJB 2.0, 2.x, two types of entity beans. First one is bean managed persistence, and the second is container managed persistent. And the last is EJB 3.x. It is deprecated and replaced by Hibernate JPA. So we will understand further. So let's understand what's the drawback of JDBC. If you just open the DB connection, we need to use drag. If any exception occurred, then catch block will handle it. And finally, it is used to close the connection. And developer must close the connection. If you don't close the connection, finally block, then JDBC doesn't responsible to close the connection. And one more thing. In the JDBC, we need to write SQL commands in various places. After the programmer has created this structure, if the programmer want to modify the structure of table, then JDBC don't work. Again, we need to modify and compile and redeploy. So it is quite irritating while we are again and again. So we understand what is Hibernate. So Hibernate is a framework. It simplifies the development of a Java application to interact with database. It is an open source lightweight ORM, or ORM stands for Object Relational Mapping Tool. Hibernate implements the specification of JPA. JPA is for Java Persistent API for data persistent. And in Hibernate is the ORM tool given to transfer the data between Java application and database in the form of objects. So we'll see what's the advantage and disadvantage. So start with the advantage. Hibernate supports inheritance, associations, collections. In Hibernate, if you want to save the derived class object, then its base class object will also stored in the database. So that means Hibernate supporting inheritance. And Hibernate supports relationships like one to many, one to one, many to many, many to one, and all the bidirections like this. So we will understand further later. And Hibernate also supports collections like list, set, map. And as we see, Hibernate have capabilities to generate primary key automatically. And Hibernate had its own query language. Example, Hibernate query language, which is database independent. For example, if our client require, for example, our application will be developed in Oracle. So, and client will after 5 to 10 years later, after that they require a new database, like they want to switch into DB2 because of cost cutting and all this, or MySQL or any. So our application won't be affected because it will be written in HQL. So it is database independent. And the disadvantage is boilerplate code issue. Actually, we need to write same code in several files in the same application, but Spring eliminate this. So I don't think it's any disadvantage of Hibernate. Yeah, that's all for today. Thank you. If you have any further query in this, so you will ping me.